Hello and welcome to another one of my F1 chats. My name is Alex as F1 Stuff and this is the 11th instalment of this series, and we will move straight into the articles that we will cover today. The first being a feature on Sebastian Vettel, sort of discussing life in lockdown, his family, and also racing as well. The Chinese Virtual Grand Prix drivers that are turning up this weekend, and also the French GP is set to be cancelled. So moving into the first article, the feature on Sebastian Vettel. This comes from the Formula 1 website, and it was sort of a long read, but I have cut out some of the, I don't know how to call it, some of the bulk, the unnecessary bits of the article, and just picked out bits that I found interesting. So it opens with him saying that he's got 3 kids in that top little paragraph there, which I didn't know he had any at all, but I mean, I do know he is a intensely private man, but the bit that I was kind of interested in was there is a high chance that a new Ferrari deal will be done before the season resumes. The Ferrari seat alongside Charles Leclerc for 2021 and beyond is among the most prized on the grid, with Daniel Ricciardo and Carlos Sainz among the names linked with it. Vettel has no intention of going anywhere, and with Ferrari boss Mattia Binotto being very complimentary about his charge, the arrows are all pointing towards a continuation of their partnership, and with F1 on shutdown, there's suddenly plenty of time to crunch the numbers and agree the details to push it over the line. So could it be done before we go racing again? It depends when we will have the first race, says Vettel. There is a high chance we will have to make a decision before then, or before there will be a first race, because at the moment it looks like there will be no race before June or even July. See, for me, having no 2020 season has kind of worked out for Vettel a little bit here, because if he'd have underperformed again against Charles Leclerc in 2020, in this beginning half of the year, it may have been more of a cut deal for him retiring or moving teams or possibly going to McLaren. That's a rumour. It would be a shame if we lose Vettel, but having no 2020 season, I think, has actually helped him out in that he doesn't have to race at all and show that he can beat him. He can just say it and Ferrari will believe that, because he is their number one driver, and they will retain him more than likely for 2021. So moving further into the article, the main priority at first was to ensure that we're all dealing with the situation in the right way. Therefore, everything was put on hold, and I can imagine that that's the same everywhere else, and it was the same for us. It's not like a couple of days after Australia we said, right now we'll talk, we'll make some progress. The obvious next question is, how long would the contract be for? Vettel's last few deals have been multi-year, and while he concedes that he's approaching the twilight of his career, the 32-year-old doesn't see his age as a barrier, thus suggesting we shouldn't rule out a longer-term contract. Whatever the deal will be like, it will be whatever I and the team will be comfortable with, he says. So in terms of duration, I don't know. Normally the contracts I've had in the past were all 3-year deals. I know I'm one of the more experienced drivers in Formula 1, but I'm not the oldest, and I don't think there's an age limit in this regard. So I do cut out a big chunk of the article now and jump straight to a bit about his pay cut. So decisions are taking place over a temporary pay cut within them, and this comes after McLaren, Williams, Racing Point and Haas drivers have taken pay cuts, and also Lewis Hamilton as well, which I'm surprised they didn't mention, but Hamilton, I believe, has taken a 30% pay cut. So Ferrari are not furloughing staff, but Vettel has admitted discussing a salary reduction, although the details will not be revealed, and that is going to be fairly standard. I wouldn't expect him to reveal that at all. But it was the last paragraph about this article that really caught my attention. Is virtual racing for Sebastian Vettel on the cards? So obviously his teammate Charles Leclerc won his first race of the season in the virtual Bahrain Grand Prix. Virtual Australian Grand Prix. I'll pop a little card in the corner to my review that I did for that race. So a number of F1 drivers, including Max Verstappen, Lando Norris and Alex Albon, have turned their in-home simulators, or turns to the in-home simulators to get their racing fix and pass the extra time they aren't used to having. So Vettel hasn't been one of these drivers to do so, but maybe the bug has bitten. The truth is I didn't have a simulator until a couple of days ago, so I haven't been tempted because I didn't have the chance. I have heard a lot of things about it, so I figured I should get one and try, but I still need to set it up properly. Generally, I'm not going to foresee a career in sim racing. I think it's more something to try for fun. There we go, someone actually saying it is just for fun. That's the first time I've seen it in writing, and that's all it is. So I do hope the Vettel does join in and pair with Leclerc on the game and just race and have some fun. Yeah, this whole feature article is actually quite an interesting read. I don't feel like I've delivered it too well in this video, but definitely go and read it. It is a long one, probably 15-ish minutes worth of reading. I am an appallingly slow reader, but it is definitely worth a read. So we will move into our next story now, and that is that there are 6 F1 drivers and a Real Madrid star confirmed for the Chinese Virtual Grand Prix. Obviously, the day of recording this is a Thursday, I think, Thursday or Friday. I will just triple check because I can't actually remember. So I am actually recording this on a Friday, and the race will happen on a Sunday. So there is still some time to confirm some of the other drivers. So moving into the article, why didn't I have a thing? Why didn't I have an animation on that? Oh, that's annoying. So following the success of the second instalment of the F1 Esports Virtual Grand Prix series, 6 Formula 1 drivers will battle it out at the Chinese Virtual Grand Prix this Sunday. So Charles Leclerc will be out for victory once again as he takes on fellow Formula 1 competitors George Russell, Giovinazzi, Lando Norris, Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi. So alongside a star-studded grid of Formula 1 drivers, Real Madrid and Belgium international goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois will make his Virtual Grand Prix debut for Red Bull. So quite who's going to pair him this time, I'm not sure, but I feel Red Bull will continuously chop and change their drivers. So moving further into the article about how to watch, they have pulled it forwards from 8 a.m. to 8. They've pulled it forwards from 8 p.m. to 6 p.m. on the Sunday, so it will now happen 2 hours earlier and again streamed live to YouTube, Facebook and Twitch and expected to run for an hour and a half with a 28 lap race. There will also be a bonus event at the end, and this bonus event will be the F1 Esports Series China Championship, which will kick off as a pre-season event on Sunday. I'm not sure what to think about all of this. There are so many esports things going on. Not only have you got multiple Formula 1 things, because again there's another pro exhibition race happening before this, then you have the Virtual Grand Prix, then you have this F1 esports thing that's happening after. Also running alongside the pro exhibition match, you have the Chinese Grand Prix running from Veloce. So that's 4 F1 esports things happening at the same weekend. Then you've got all of the rally stuff, all of the NASCAR stuff, all of the IndyCar stuff, all of the iRacing stuff. There is just so much going on. It's really difficult to just pick and choose one thing to stick with. I mean, I like it. I do like having all this option, but there is a lot. And I feel it needs to sort of just be a bit more narrowed down, a bit more honed in on one particular thing. So moving from the Virtual Grand Prix to our final article, and it is yet a little bit more speculation, and it comes from the BBC, and it is that the French Grand Prix is set to be cancelled, and I don't know where my animations have gone. This is annoying. So the French Grand Prix is set to be the next Formula 1 event to be postponed as a result of the coronavirus crisis. French President Emmanuel Macron said in a televised address to the nation on Monday that restrictions on public events would continue until mid-July. So France's race around the F1 Championship is due to be held at Paul Ricard near Marseille on the 28th of June. So with restrictions on public events being extended into mid-July, it is very unlikely that the race will happen on the 28th of June. It could still happen behind closed doors, however, it just may not happen altogether. So the move seems to make it impossible to hold an event that was attended by 135,000 people last year. The race would be the 10th Grand Prix to be called off at the start of the season that has been laid waste by the coronavirus crisis. F1 says it's considering all options as it looks for a way to reconfigure the season later this year. The hope is that the season can start in Europe in the summer, and it is possible that the first races at least could be held behind closed doors. Ross Brawn, F1's managing director, said last week that a viable World Championship season could be held before the end of the year, even if the first race did not take until October. But he added that the season could run into January 2021 to fit in more races. Now this is my biggest bugbear. I don't want the season to run into January 2021 because then there's just going to be no off-season at all. We're going to, like I said in one of my previous F1 chats, we're going to go from one of the longest off-season times, off-season peaks, if you want to call it that, to one of the shortest if we end the season in January and then still start the season in about January or March, late March. We're going from a couple months to just 2. It seems a little bit too cramped and too close together. I feel it is the wrong call to push the season into January of 2021. So F1 is facing serious financial shortfall as a result of lack of racing, as all 3 of its main revenue streams are under threat: race hosting fees, broadcast rights, and sponsorship income. Only one race has so far been permanently cancelled, with Monaco deciding to give up on its event this year because it said it would not find a suitable alternative slot, and that's as it's got to close off the entire little city or town or country, I don't know, the roads where the track is run. All others have been postponed in hope of finding an alternative date that they can get racing again. The F1 teams are on a factory shutdown, having brought the traditional summer break forward from August so as to be in the best place possible once travel restrictions are lifted. 5 of the 7 UK teams have placed many of their staff on enforced leave as a result of lack of action, and F1 bosses have taken a series of steps to cut costs, with the future of F1 uncertain. So measures include the postponement by a year of the major regulation change that was scheduled to come in force for 2021, and the requirement for teams to use the same cars for 2021 as they will this year. And bosses are in the midst of negotiations over lowering the budget cap that is set to come into force next year at $175 million. So a reduction to $150 million has already been informally agreed, and there is a meeting scheduled for this week to discuss the idea of potentially reducing it to $125 million. I feel a budget cap is what the sport needs, majorly. Simply because Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull are pumping almost double and triple that value, that 125 value, into the sport, and that is how they are so dominant. But they need to find a cohesive, is cohesive the right word? A way to easily push this all together nicely. It's really difficult to explain because it's just all been, everything has just been thrown in the air, and they've got to try and catch everything and piece it all together. But some things are being dropped, races for example, and deals, and teams being furloughing staff so they can't run anything, and all sorts. And now they're doing all these esports events and hosting other things going on, and trying to keep us all satisfied whilst coming up with other things. It's all manic, and I can imagine it is completely and utterly manic behind the scenes. There we go. That was a sort of quick-ish, I hope, rundown, just over 10 minutes hopefully, of some of those major news articles. They're nothing too breaking at all, but stuff that still needed to be said. So I think that's all I've got for you today, guys. I will release the next video, which will be the Chinese Virtual Grand Prix race review, which will come on Monday or Tuesday in the next coming days. In a couple of days' time, that video will drop, and it will be a review of that race. I'll see you next time.